Heydarian, he's a professor of political science at De La Salle University, joining us now from Manila. Good to have you with us on the News Hour. So is this a real warming in relations, or is this just a shift away from the U.S.?
Well, first of all, I think the optics have been very great. The Philippines, for the very first time, you have a leader that has chosen to visit China ahead of any other major power. Traditionally, Filipino leaders first visited countries like the United States or perhaps Japan first before going to China. But now you have Duterte going to China first, which says a lot about which country for him is now the #1 priority. For Duterte, it's important to prevent conflict in the South China Sea, to peacefully manage the disputes, expand areas of cooperation, both economics and his war on drugs. And of course, more importantly, he's also trying to signal to the United States that if the U.S. continues to criticize him on the war on drugs and not provide sufficient support to the Philippines, he always has the China option. Now, here in the China Strip, there is a lot of economic incentives that have been put on the table, but one thing that everyone here in the Philippines is waiting for is whether he can get any concessions on the South China Sea disputes.
Because that's what I wanted to ask you about, because there have been real disputes between China and the Philippines on the South China Sea. So where does that leave that issue?
I mean, definitely in China, it seems the reception is very positive for Duterte. But many people in the Philippines have been raising their eyebrows, saying why the Filipino leader has been so tough to the U.S., a tried and tested friend, all-weather friend, despite all the complication of bilateral relations. But he seems to be very deferential towards China. In fact, he said he's Chinese himself and he has Chinese blood, and he tried to downplay the disputes with China. But a lot of people in the Philippines who are very suspicious of China and very positively predisposed towards U.S., they want actual concessions. Now, I know that there were discussions behind the scenes on a joint fisheries agreement in the Scarborough Shoal and a joint oil exploration perhaps in the Reed Bank, also in the South China Sea. But President Duterte is trying to manage the expectation by saying that maybe talking about agreement is too early. But I won't be surprised that if going home, he at least secures some informal agreement from the Chinese to give the Filipino fishermen access to the hotly disputed Scarborough Shoal, because he cannot go home empty-handed when it comes to the South China Sea disputes.
And when your president says that it's time to say goodbye to the United States, I mean, he said this during his visit, in fact, to Beijing. How much public support is there for a statement of that kind? And does he have the leeway to actually do what he says and say goodbye to the United States?
A survey just came out yesterday saying that U.S. enjoys a +66 net approval rating. That means super majority of Filipinos like the United States. And guess what? China has a -31 favorability rating. So Duterte will go against the grain of public opinion if he really says goodbye to the United States, which I doubt is going to be the case, because the Philippine military is also very predisposed towards the United States positively, while very critical of China. So it will be very difficult for him to really say goodbye to U.S. And let's be honest, when it comes to Duterte, he makes a lot of blustery statements. He's fond of braggadocio, but we are yet to see confirmation that bilateral security cooperation with the U.S. will be indeed downgraded in any significant way. And so far, we have not seen any confirmation. So perhaps he's trying to play to his audience and impress the Chinese.
All right. So we thank you very much for speaking to us from Manila.